Bob Anderson, thanks for joining us. And we wanted to be talking, I'll tell the viewers, about government consolidation. And a lot of people know that in the state of Illinois, we have more units of government, I think, than any other state, if not the number one state. We are certainly in the top three. And one of the things we're going to be talking to Mr. Anderson about is government consolidation, specifically about township government that he has been involved in the past, and is going to argue that we can get rid of it and perhaps take some of the burden off the taxpayers. So, Bob, when were you a township official? Let's start with that.
Okay, well, first, thanks for Terry for having me on to discuss this very important situation about government consolidation, particularly township government. And what you said that we could be number one, we are number one, and we're number one by at least 2,000 more governments. So I was voted into as a township trustee in McHenry Township in 2017. So I was there for one term, 4 years.
And when you were there, when you started, did you believe that this was a good thing and that's why you joined it? And if that was the case, how did you come about to the position that we don't need township government?
Well, I started my issue here about township government almost 30 years ago. The reason I ran for the township trustee position was I wanted to eliminate from inside. And I was fortunate enough to have some like-minded people that ran with me, and we did have enough voting power to get in pretty much what we had. So that's how I kind of got into one of the things that I'd like to talk to you today about, Terry, about that general assistance. And
can I start before we do that? I mean,
okay, sure.
What is the purpose of township government? Because I think most people haven't even heard about it, and they don't know what it's supposed to be doing.
I really like that question, Terry, because it's a very complex situation. The Illinois legislation has given township government 3 mandated duties. But if you have any questions about what I'm going to say here, because I want to make this as clear as possible. Mm-hmm. I have talked to state legislators that they do not know this, but township government has two governments in one. Each has its own tax levy. So basically, I'm going to talk about one that's called township government that has 2 mandated duties. One is the general assistance program, and the other is property assessment. When people start talking about the road district, that is a separate unit of government. The township people have done a great job of confusing the people about that, and time again, I've talked to people, even state legislators, when they question me, I said, well, go look at your tax bill. You'll see 2 line items on there. One will say for the township, and one will say for the township road district.
And so you're saying the confusion is that a lot of people think the road district is part of township government, and you're saying it's not.
That is correct. Absolutely correct. The township people have done that for years. When I first got started 30 years ago, I didn't know that, but I got caught in some legal situations about getting a question on the ballot about township government. But anyway, it's clear, very clear, that there are separate units of government.
Okay, so township government then does real estate assessment.
Yes.
And financial assistance.
Yes, general assistance.
General assistance, and by that we might use the term welfare. In other words, if you fall down on your luck, this would be general assistance. Is that the kind of thing?
Yes, I would. Yes, it's very
in a generic way. You know, I mean,
well, yeah, it is.
Just to give people an idea of what it's supposed to be doing, and then we'll get more into the details of what it does.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So given that it has then 2 primary, because we already established the road district is not really a part of the township government, it does 2 primary things: real estate assessments and general assistance. What would you say is there for the problem? It sounds like, well, wouldn't these be valuable services that township would provide?
Okay, I think if you go back when township government started, Terry, in 1850, I would not argue that. This is no longer the 1850. And when you get into that general assistance, When I sent out this free information, I started last summer in August, and I probably have sent out upwards of 100 to the different townships throughout the state, from small ones to large ones. I've covered general assistance for all 17 townships in our county. And when it comes to general assistance, I guess the best way I could say it about my own county, McHenry County, we have 17 townships. 8 of those townships, when it comes to general assistance, there are no candidates that qualified for assistance. However, they've continued to levy money when they got illegal fund balances. Every one of our townships in McHenry County, all 17 have illegal fund balances. And when I say illegal, state legislation has said that in a fund, you can have funds not more than the equivalent of 2.5 years of expenditure. So I've got figures that are all in my head, but I can tell you that as I've looked into this, almost all these townships have got illegal fund balances. And I also found out that, for an example, I believe it was DeKalb County, when I sent to DeKalb Township about general assistance, I found that that supervisor was doing general assistance for 18 other townships. One was even out of their county. And going back to when I said I was a trustee for McHenry Township, I started to we had discussion about general assistance. And for our McHenry County Township, McHenry Township would have a population somewhere around, say, 48 to 50,000 people. And our general assistance program, there would only be about an average of 4 people a month that would qualify for that. And the usual payout to that candidate would be about $350 to $370. And then,
when you say they have an illegal fund balance, and we just heard
yes.
you might get $400, let's say, what kind of a fund balance do they have that you say is illegal? How much money are we talking about sitting on the sidelines?
Everybody is different.
Every township, in other words.
Well, each one of these townships, we have 1,429, 430 townships. Each one sets the program separately.
Okay.
It's just the most confusing thing there is. But I'm going trying through my mind. I think it was Grafton Township for what they spent the year that I asked, and it was for the fiscal year 2021-22. They had enough fund balance to last in the hundreds of years, whatever that number was. It was absolutely ridiculous.
And let me for the viewers, they might say, okay, but so what? Let's say they say, what if we got rid of township government for the sake of discussion? What would that fix? What good would that do to us? Would it help reduce property taxes? Just what would it accomplish?
Well, there's no question it would be a savings, a tax savings. It would just be absolutely take out some confusion of people. Who are they voting for? Going back to what earlier said, that most people have no idea they're paying taxes to a township.
And where do they? Is it part of the property tax?
Township government. This is a figure you'll never see from township officials of Illinois. Anything that will ever come out of all the thousands and thousands of words about township, they'll never use this figure. Township government, when it comes to property taxes, 90 to 94% of their funding comes from property taxes. And if you look at your township, and the township people use this constantly about, well, we're only a small percentage of your township. They never talk about the road district. They never talk about the 2 line items on your tax bill. What they will say is, oh, it's the school districts. Oh, it's the school districts that are taking all your money. Well, yes, if you look at your taxes, I think everybody in the state of Illinois is being overtaxed would realize that your schools take out of your tax bill, the cost is probably in the neighborhood of, say, 65 to 70%. I would like to say this, that I've served on 2 different school boards, one at the high school level in McHenry and here at Wonder Lake at the grade school level. And totally, I've got let's say 8, probably 15 years on 2 different school boards. I'll say this, that when it comes to dollar and dollar of waste of tax money, the township was way more wasteful than that school district, those 2 school districts that I served on.
And
but that's pretty hard to get across to people.
well, and by the way, I will say, those who serve on school boards are not compensated. They are serving as volunteers, you might say. They're elected, but they don't get a salary, right? So, what do township people get a salary, and if so, what kind of money are we talking about at the local level?
Each township will decide that. First of all, a township supervisor, the township people, you have a township supervisor, you have 4 trustees, you have a clerk, you have the road commissioner, and you have the assessor. If you go to the school district, the school board president does not get any stipends or any benefits at all, and the board members do not. When we were at McHenry Township, I was just amazed that our supervisor, with his benefits, were up $100,000. The figure that I've come up with since I got involved with this information would be over at Thornton Township in Cook County. The supervisor there, remember, it's one mandated duty, and that supervisor there with benefits is $277,000 a year, and that person is also a mayor for Thornton or Dalton, a little town of Dalton over there. I don't know what that population, but she's holding 2 jobs. And we're on that subject. You didn't get to this, Terry, but I think it's very important for me to say this. And I'm dealing with state legislators to get different things changed about general assistance, about township government. And I don't know, if Terry, if you're aware of this or not, but you can be a state senator, a state representative, and simultaneously be a township supervisor or a road commissioner or assessor or trustee. All these people that you and I in the past years we've voted to put people down into Springfield, the General Assembly, they are supporting double dipping. I talked to one of my former state senators about double dipping, and she defended it to me. She told me, well, he's a former supervisor, Bill Peterson. I believe he was over he was in Lake County, one of the townships in Lake County. I can't remember that township right now, but he was making over $90,000 a year as a township supervisor, $84,000 a state senator. And my state senator said, well, he's a nice guy. What's that got to do with it? So there's so many different things about this township government that are just wrong. And I believe, if I could say this, and I try to say it as much as I can, and quite often when I do have a chance to get interviewed, it never seems to get in the paper. But all these township people, I think you're finding out that this is the force. This is the training ground to get people elected, and that's where all these votes are. So it's not about that you really need them. It's about who are keeping people down in that General Assembly in Springfield.
You know, I have one last question. We started off saying that the road fund is not part of the township government. But then when you were mentioning officials who were getting paid, you mentioned the road commissioner. If the
Yes.
road fund is a separate unit of government from township, why would the road commissioner be part of township government?
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And when I was bringing that out of my mind, I thought that could be something that could be confusing. It is confusing because I told you they're separate. Okay, but all these years I've always put that there. And if you talk to people, if what the township people put out is they want that in your mind, but that would be a separate situation. If I'm talking about now, when I first got started, let me backtrack a little bit. Not knowing they were totally separate, whenever I got started 30 years ago, I was looking to get rid of township government, which include the road district. And as I've got around to see that situation, it's too confusing with people to do that. And so if I'm talking about consolidating township government or eliminate, I'm talking about just the township part of it, not the road district. So that would be including, that would be the township would be then go back to, you had the supervisor, a clerk, 4 trustees, and then you'd also have your assessor, because that's part of it too.
Okay, and Bob, before we close off, so if we got, I think the argument in summary here is if we got rid of township government, the benefit would be there would be some relief of the cost on the taxpayer. You wouldn't have some of these township officials making six figures. Plus, I presume, are they also getting a pension?
Yes,
So
that's part of their
there's another
benefits. Oh
cost
yeah,
that's ongoing.
absolutely.
And so you would have some relief for the taxpayers. And I think you would argue that virtually you wouldn't even notice that if you got rid of township governments, you would say we wouldn't even notice that they're gone.
I would say that. Let me just say this too. Most people don't realize this. There's only 20 states that still have township government. Illinois has 102 counties. We have 17 counties in the state of Illinois do not have township government. They're never going to have it. If you go to Chicago, Chicago 1902 abolished their townships. If you go to the neighboring state of Iowa, they abolished their townships in 1942, I believe. If their townships going and gone, I don't think people would lose any services. I think what they would see is have a line of government off there that they don't have to figure out who the people to vote for. The votes are usually controlled in an awful type election where only a few people are voting, controlled by the township people and their supporters. And then if you go into Cook County, you have 29 townships in Cook County. You have 29 elected assessors. But everybody knows in Cook County you have a county assessor. Why do you have 17 paid township assessors getting benefits such as health care, retirement, the salary?
Yeah,
That
because you would be saying, and it would probably be true, in most we have a county assessor. So the
yes,
township people, while on paper they're supposed to be doing real estate assessment, you would be saying they're not really doing the assessments.
they are not doing the job they're elected. It's the same like when going back to these supervisors that I said earlier, that they're not doing the only one mandated duty they've got, and that would be general assistance.
Let me ask, since you were a township trustee, can anyone run for this, or is it kind of a closed shop where they try to control who gets on there and gets these salaries?
That's probably the best question you've asked me, because township they've got a great background of protecting themselves in the oldest unit of government. One of the reasons I got started with this was I started reading about townships and so on and so forth, and saw a few articles in a paper. So I got a group together to run back in 2017. The only reason we got in was that because we had the opportunity. One of the guys that was running for supervisor was an attorney, and I was a trustee, or not a trustee, but I was a precinct committeeman. And most of your elected officials are precinct committeemen, and that's who controls these little local elections. And so we found a loophole of how we got elected. So we forced the people that were in office to run as independents. We were running as Republicans. And then the Democrats had a slate there, so there was quite a few people running at that time. And so the Republicans were elected. So we got in and controlled that. Soon after that, former state senator Altoff, she went to Springfield, and that loophole's gone. So I can tell you right now that I don't think anybody will ever give me an example of somebody such as myself could get a group of people together to get a controlling vote on that township board throughout this whole state and absolutely have any changes. It is controlled from the inside.
So kind of the old boys network, so to speak, and a training ground for maybe going to the legislature, or just another source of income for those in elected office if they are already maybe holding another position, as you mentioned.
What I just mentioned there's not a person in Springfield. 118 representatives, was the 59 senators, the governor. They all know exactly what I said there.
And
If
I
you
would
look,
say, since most of us, I mean, you've had the experience of being on there, so you took it upon yourself to raise awareness, which is why we wanted to do an interview with you. But I would say 99% of the people, or maybe even less than 1%, know anything about township government and are unaware of this as an issue to even be against it. So I suppose, and let me close out with this, if if someone said this was interesting, we should get rid of township government, what would you say is the best thing for a viewer to do to get behind your effort to get rid of township government?
I would say the best thing would be to connect with a person I've just come across, actually through Zoom meetings. I have not met yet, with Anthony Travis. He's someplace in Cook County, I think somewhere around Proviso. I'm not really sure, but we are going to have a personal meeting soon. But Travis and I, we are trying to put together, with his thoughts and my thoughts of what our backgrounds are, to make this a statewide issue. That if somebody is out there, whoever hears your story here, or my
Let
story
me
here through the
interject because
program.
people aren't going to
Yeah.
know Anthony Travis, but Anthony Travis,
Okay.
and
Okay.
there's a core of people working together to see what can we do to lower property taxes and get rid of some of the costs. Anthony's involved in that. I would say that go ahead, folks, if you want, get a hold of your state representative and state senator and let them know. If enough people are telling them, hey, this is important to us because property taxes are killing us. Right now, no one is arguing against townships by and large because they don't even know about it. And those who probably the only people that the state lawmakers ever hear from regarding townships are those who are involved in township government. So they only hear one side of the story, so to speak.
Well, from my experience, you said that very well, Terry, but I'm just going to agree with that because I had a barbershop, retired. I was there for 59 years at Wonder Lake, and I talked to many people coming in. They're the ones that pushed me into being an activist, voted for me to get an elected office, school board, the township. And people are busy with their lives. And I think that the only way to do this is have some organizers throughout the state, if you can, get different groups together to find a state senator, a state representative that would take this upon themselves to push that. We have to have somebody down in Springfield who's got the guts to stand up to a political system that's very strong and very controlled by township officials of Illinois. They have a paid lobbyist down there. If any kind of a bill comes through that is pro-township, they're there supporting that. If it's anti-township, they're out there to support, trying to make sure that townships stay alive. And so I think if we can get a group together throughout the state, and that's what Travis and I are working on, is that to expand that, to find a few legislators. The people want to change this, but I've been in this for 30 years, and it has continued. And so I think a different approach is that we got to find somebody who's got a big enough hammer and say, hey, you're in Springfield, you're my state legislator, to do that. I could tell you I have a state legislator. His name is Tom Weber. New legislator, I voted for him. I had one meeting on this issue about general assistance back in 2022 December. I cannot get the second meeting of loud that. I'm trying to deal with my state senator. I'm reaching out to whoever I can. I do have this coming Thursday a meeting with a state rep that's out of my district, though, that I'm going to have an opportunity to talk about this general assistance situation, in which actually, if you talk about general assistance, you talk about government consolidation with the townships.
I would just offer that if there's one person like you calling a state rep or state senator, it might be easy for them to go, well, this is just one guy. It's not really a big issue for me to spend my time on. But again, if they were hearing from 20 people, 50 people, all of a sudden there might be, okay, this is something I need to start paying attention to. And I would just say, as we've already said, just to repeat, people can't be for or against an idea they've never heard about. And most of us, if we're even aware of township government, it's probably because we see it on our property tax bill as a line item and we don't even know what it's for.
Well, I'm going to say this: the general public that's being overtaxed in the state, they don't normally. I've talked to so many people when I have the barbershop about their tax bill. Most people look at just the bottom line. They don't look at all those layers that are killing them. Just recently, I came up with a new number about all these layers of government. 40 states of 50 states, they have two layers of government. There are tax bills here that will have up to 16 layers of government on there. There's, I can't believe there's not the outrage of the public about this issue. And I'm going to, this is more than just a thought, probably a pretty, I'm going to put it a strong thought. The people that can change things, they're just so disappointed of the people they voted for or what's been going on that they feel like, why do I want to bother? We can't make any changes? We can't get there. I'm a different type of person. I believe change is doable. You have to be a fighter to do it, and I'm just so appreciative of it, Jerry, to have this chance to talk to your audience. That I'm looking at some fighters. You made a statement of maybe 20 people, a little bit more. 20 people could get together and I think start making some changes and say, we're not going to take this anymore. Why are we looking to the situation year after year? Everybody in the states knows that a number will come up. We got 7,000, 9,000 units of government. If people don't make some type of a force effort, you'll still have that next year from now.
You know, I'll close out with this. We talk at the national level. There's various issues going on. One of the major issues that's starting to come about is people recognizing what I call the bureaucratic state and the degree to which the bureaucracy at the federal level, and we see it right now with the Congress fighting with the head of the FBI trying to get documents, that increasingly the bureaucratic state acts as if they're the real power in Washington, not the elected officials. I think we can also, to some extent, then say that there is, when you look at the state government, county government, city government, and the amount of bureaucracy, we need government. But the question about how much government we need and how much should the cost of government be on the back of the taxpayers is certainly an issue that we should be discussing, especially here in Illinois, when we have so many people fleeing the state and businesses leaving the state because of the excessive cost of government. And Bob, I think we ought to leave it at that, but we appreciate you joining us. I'll give you a last word if there's one last thing you want to say.
Oh, I have one more word. Thank you. We need more people such as you that have the opportunity to do such a great job of getting out and reaching out to people and have a program to get this out into the public. We need more of this. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Bob Anderson, and hopefully we can talk again as this issue develops. Thanks again.
I would like that very much.